Hi, in this video, we're going to help you prepare for your essay on A-level biology paper 3. Now we've done a few of these videos. This one's going to be a little bit different because we're going to focus on co-transport as a transport mechanism. We're going to look at example essay titles that you could use co-transport in as one of your paragraphs. And I'm going to give you an example paragraph for one of those essays. So stay tuned till the end. First of all, what is co-transport? So this is just a little reminder for you. This could be, for example, an epithelial cell that lines the ileum of the small intestine, which is where absorption of glucose and amino acids takes place into the blood. Now, if this is an epithelial cell that lines the ileum in the small intestine, this would be the lumen of the gut, so the inside of the ileum, the inside of that tube where there's lots of glucose, there's lots of amino acids that have been digested from starch and from proteins. This would be the blood in a capillary. So this would be the wall of the capillary. And remember, that's a single layer of cells called the endothelium, which substances are easily able to pass through because it's so thin. So in terms of the mechanism itself, sodium ions are actively pumped or actively transported out of these epithelial cells. And we can see that happening here. Now, because this is active transport, it does require energy from ATP. And this protein specifically is known as the sodium-potassium pump. So it's actively transporting sodium ions out of the cell, and at the same time, it is moving or actively transporting potassium ions into the cell. So those ions will be actively transported out of the epithelial cell, and they will move into the bloodstream across the wall of the endothelium. Now, what that does is it maintains a low concentration of sodium ions inside the cell cytoplasm because they're constantly being actively transported out. So the concentration of Na+ ions in here is low. So now we've created a concentration gradient whereby sodium ions can start to diffuse in. But as those sodium ions diffuse in down their concentration gradient, they are moving through a co-transport protein, which is embedded in this cell surface membrane. So as they diffuse in down their concentration gradient, they are carrying with them either glucose or a particular amino acid. Now, once those glucose molecules or amino acids get into the cell, you've now got a higher concentration of glucose or that amino acid in the epithelial cell. So it's now able to diffuse into the blood in the capillary down its concentration gradient. And this will be facilitated diffusion because remember, glucose and amino acids cannot pass through the phospholipid bilayer. They are not lipid soluble, they are too large. So that will be facilitated diffusion, and that will be using other carrier proteins that are embedded in this basal membrane or the bottom membrane of these epithelial cells. Now, this is perfect for essays because it's linked to transport of all different types. You've got active transport, co-transport, facilitated diffusion. It's also linked to the uses of ATP. So let's have a look now at some essay titles that you could use your co-transport knowledge in. Essay title 1, the importance of membranes in the functioning of cells. Essay title 2, the uses and importance of ATP in organisms or living things. Number 3, which is maybe the most obvious one, the importance of ions in metabolic processes. Number 4, the importance of transport in cells and organisms. And number 5, which is quite similar to number 3, just the importance of ions in biology, because obviously we can focus on those sodium ions. Now, I've chosen one title, and I've chosen a different title to last time because I have done some essay prep where we've discussed ions before, and I did you an example paragraph for the essay, The Importance of Ions in Organisms. But this time I've chosen the essay title, The Uses and Importance of ATP, to show you how we can use our knowledge of co-transport, but focus specifically on the importance of ATP for this particular process. So let's read it together. ATP plays a crucial role in co-transport, a process which is vital for nutrient absorption in the small intestine and selective reabsorption from the proximal convoluted tubule in the kidney nephron. Now, you could talk about both the small intestine, where you get co-transport for reabsorption, or the proximal convoluted tubule, but they're both going to be focusing on the same mechanism of co-transport. So I wouldn't talk about both of them. I'm going to talk about them together. So ATP is used to power the sodium-potassium pump, which actively transports sodium ions out of epithelial cells into the surrounding tissue fluid. This creates a concentration gradient of sodium ions, which drives the facilitated diffusion of sodium ions back into the cell via a co-transport protein. Glucose molecules are simultaneously transported into the cell alongside sodium ions, allowing their uptake against their concentration gradient. Now, without ATP to provide energy for the sodium-potassium pump, this sodium ion concentration gradient would collapse. Co-transport could not occur. So you can see I'm trying to focus specifically on the importance of ATP to actively transport the sodium ions out, create and maintain that concentration gradient. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk more about why this is so important as a mechanism. So this mechanism is essential for absorbing glucose as well as amino acids from digested food in the ileum, and it's essential for reabsorbing them from the filtrate in the kidney nephrons, which takes place in the proximal convoluted tubule. Remember, that's called selective reabsorption. And without glucose, cells would not have the energy source required for respiration, and without amino acids, cells would not have the building blocks they need for protein synthesis. So what I've done here is I've used my knowledge of co-transport, but I'm tailoring it to this essay title by focusing on the importance of ATP in this process and the importance of this process overall, and what would happen if we didn't have ATP and we didn't have co-transport. Now, this is what you need to do in your essay. And remember, we recommend that you do really at least 5 paragraphs like this. So 5 paragraphs from different parts of the specification that all answer the question. They're all relevant, they're all A-level detail, and they do not include any significant errors. I hope you found that useful.